$2.1 trillion is sitting in retirement accounts right now that nobody is watching. Not hidden, not stolen, just quietly forgotten. Spread across 31.9 million separate accounts, averaging about $66,000 each. If that number sounds abstract, here's the version that isn't. There's a real chance some of it is yours. And here's the part that should actually bother you. A huge chunk of that money didn't get forgotten by accident. It got forgotten because the system is basically built to make you forget it. Here's how it actually works. You leave a job. Maybe you get laid off, maybe you just move on. Doesn't matter. You had a 401k there, and unless you go out of your way to do something about it, that account doesn't just sit there patiently waiting for you. Your old employer is legally allowed to kick you out of the plan. Nobody asks permission. They call it a force out. And the rules are almost comically blunt. If your balance is under $1,000, they can just cut you a check and mail it. Which sounds harmless until you realize the IRS treats that as a withdrawal the second it lands in your mailbox. You've got 60 days to get it into another retirement account, or it's taxed as regular income, plus a 10% early withdrawal penalty on top. Miss that window because you were, say, busy starting a new job, and the government quietly takes a bite out of your own retirement money. If your balance is bigger, somewhere between $1,000 and $7,000, the rule is different, but arguably weirder. Your employer has to roll it into something called a safe harbor IRA. Not an account you picked, not a provider you researched, one they picked for you without asking. The biggest player in this space is a company called Millennium Trust. And if you've ever left a job with a few $1,000s in your 401k, there's a real chance your money has already passed through their hands without you knowing it. This isn't some new scheme either. The mandatory rollover rule dates back to 2001, when Congress passed a law meant to solve an actually real problem. At the time, employers were just cashing people out entirely, no matter the balance, and plenty of that money never made it into a new retirement account at all. So in 2004, the Department of Labor stepped in and built the safe harbor rule as the fix, requiring the money land somewhere principal protected instead of just disappearing. It was designed to prevent one kind of loss. It just quietly created another. That money almost always lands in what's called a principal protected money market fund, which is a polite way of saying it earns next to nothing. Meanwhile, the provider running the account charges you fees just to hold it there, typically a few dollars a month, plus roughly 0.5% a year in asset fees. That doesn't sound like much until you realize the account is barely earning anything to offset it, so the balance doesn't grow. It just sort of sits there, quietly leaking value year after year, to nobody's particular benefit except the providers. And because that money isn't actually invested in anything that grows, the real cost was never really the monthly fee. It's the decades of growth you're not getting. Capitalize's own researchers estimate that for someone in their 20s or 30s, leaving even a single small account parked in one of these funds, instead of properly invested, can cost several $100,000 in lost growth by the time they actually retire. Not because anyone stole it, just because compounding only works if the money is actually doing something. And that $7,000 threshold used to be $5,000. Congress raised it in 2022 under a law called Secure 2.0, specifically so more small balances would qualify for this exact process, which means the pool of accounts eligible to get quietly swept into a low-yield fund didn't shrink. It grew, on purpose. The truth is, most people never even noticed this happened to them. Research on these force-out programs found that roughly 55% of people who get moved into one of these accounts don't manage it, don't consolidate it, don't roll it anywhere better. They just cash it out the first chance they get, eating the tax hit, because untangling it feels like more trouble than it's worth. Which is, more or less, exactly the outcome all that friction is built for. Play it out for a second. Say you left $4,000 in an old 401k when you switched jobs 5 years ago. Under these rules, that balance almost certainly got swept into a safe harbor IRA without you doing anything at all. Sitting in a fund earning close to nothing while quietly paying a few dollars a month in fees, that $4,000 today is probably still close to $4,000. Had it simply stayed invested the ordinary way, tracking the market over those same 5 years, it would very likely be worth noticeably more. Nobody sent you a letter explaining the difference. It just happened, quietly, in the background, while you were busy doing literally anything else. So multiply that by an entire career. The average American holds almost 13 jobs in their working life. Median time at any one employer is under 4 years, which means nearly everyone watching this has probably changed jobs enough times to have left at least one small 401k behind somewhere, quietly compounding at basically zero, or already cashed out and taxed without fully realizing it happened. To be fair, the industry does know this is a problem, and there's actually a fix in motion. 6 of the biggest retirement record keepers in the country, Fidelity, Vanguard, Empower, Alight, TIAA, and Principal, built something called the Portability Services Network, running on infrastructure from a company called Retirement Clearinghouse. The idea is simple. When you change jobs, your old small balance account should just follow you automatically into your new employer's plan. No force out, no safe harbor IRA, no forgetting. Over 16 years, that clearinghouse has consolidated more than 500,000 accounts, worth over $20 billion. Which sounds impressive until you remember the forgotten pile it's chipping away at is over 100 times bigger. And the network only helps you going forward, not the money that's already stranded. The government tried to build a fix for that older money too. The Department of Labor launched something called the Retirement Savings Lost and Found database, specifically so people could search for old accounts they might not remember. It went live at the end of 2024. In its first full year, about 236,000 people used it. Only 29.5% of them, roughly 70,000 people, actually found an account. And that coverage exists only because plan administrators chose to submit their data voluntarily in the first place. Participation isn't mandatory, so even among the accounts that technically qualify by age, plenty might not be listed at all. And here's the catch nobody mentions when they talk about that tool. Right now, it only covers people aged 65 and older. If you're younger than that, and honestly, most people watching this probably are, the one official database built to help you find your own money legally can't show it to you yet. None of this means the money's gone forever, to be clear. There's also a national registry of unclaimed retirement benefits that isn't age-restricted, and every state runs its own unclaimed property office, because after enough years of silence, some of these accounts get escheated to the state treasury and just sit there instead. So if you've changed jobs even once, and you're not entirely sure where every old account actually landed, it's honestly worth an afternoon of searching. But notice what that says about the system itself. Finding your own retirement money currently requires you to already suspect it might be missing and go looking for it yourself across 3 or 4 different places entirely on your own. So the money's out there, roughly $2 trillion of it, sitting in accounts most of their actual owners can't even officially search for. Not stolen, not lost in any dramatic sense, just quietly parked in an account you never opened, earning almost nothing, waiting for a system that was never really built to remind you it exists. And every year, without a single headline, a few million more people quietly join the pile.